Shalom. This is Adasa Basaiwan, returning with the book of Revelation, chapter 14, part 2, which is called Babylon the Great is Fallen, is Fallen. But before we get started, I just want to let you know if my voice sounds different, it's because I'm using a headset with a mic to help cancel out the background noise. I have to keep my AC on now while I'm recording. It gets really hot in the room and my computer gets really hot. So, to preserve myself and the computer, I have the AC running in the background. And needless to say, it makes a lot of noise and it would be too disturbing to have the AC running while recording. So, I'm trying out this headset with the mic and hopefully it will work out better this way. It definitely does cancel out background noise. Right. But before we get started on the study, I also want to go through the chapters. I did not do that in part one. And going through the chapters, the titles of the chapters thus far helps us to see the sequence of events that have been taking place. So Revelation chapter 1, the book of Revelation chapter 1, we have the revelation of Hamashiach. Chapters 2 and 3, the letters of judgment to the seven assemblies. Chapter 4, in the throne room. Chapter 5, who is worthy to open the book of seals. Chapter 6, part 1, the four seals. Chapter 6, part 2, the woman and the dragon. Chapter 7, the reaping of the southern kingdom. Chapter 8, the rise of the two beasts. Chapter 9, part 1, the sifting of the northern kingdom begins. Chapter 9, part 2, the coming judgments of the two olive trees. Chapter 10, the second exodus of the northern kingdom begins. Chapter 11, the two woes. Chapter 12, the seven thunders and the seventh trumpet. This is an extension of chapter 12. And this is parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, called the second exodus of the northern kingdom. Chapter 13, the judgment of the whore of Babylon begins, and this is parts 1 to 2. Chapter 13, another extension. This is an extension of chapter 13, actually, which is parts 3 and 4, the Roman Catholic Church and Christianity. So chapter 13 has 4 parts. The first 2 parts comes from the book of Revelation. The last 2 parts, parts 3 and 4, are an extension, a study that I did on the Roman Catholic Church and Christianity. And now we're on chapter 14, called Babylon the Great is Fallen, parts 1 and 2. Now, also, before we get started, I want to remind us where we're at in sequence of events. I myself, until I did a little bit of a revision, did not remember the most important aspect of where the judgments and the events will be at this point of time. Where we are right now, the southern kingdom is already gone. They've been gone for a while now. The northern kingdom, they've made it into their land. When the northern kingdom makes it into their land, our land, the land of Yasha'al, it is the conclusion of the 400-year prophecy that was given to Abraham about his people, the conclusion of the 6,000 years on the earth, the conclusion of the 120th Yarabal, 120th Jubilee. All right? And of course, the conclusion of the last 7 years. What we looked at with the trumpet number 6, time stops. Time no longer exists. The world is now in a perpetual day. They're living a perpetual day until the judgments, the last set of judgments, are completed, which will include the seven vials, not six, the seven vials. All right? When the seventh vial is completed, Hamashiach comes with his saints, and we will continue on from there when we get to that chapter. But what I want us to remember is before the seven vials are poured out on the earth, Alahayam is judging this whore, the whore of Babylon, Babylon the Great. And this is all taking place in that perpetual day. Everything will be completed, including the seven vials will be finished. And the only time that you will know that everything is completed is when Hamashiach comes on the earth to start his 1,000-year reign as king on the earth. But in the meantime, events will take place like this destruction of the whore. Angels will proclaim to the earth. This is how they're going to get their news. Because remember, we have no more technology. So because you have no more technology, how are you going to get the news? You might be able to get some information because there'll be people spreading talk. You'll probably go back to using pigeon as messengers. Letters on horseback. Well, letters being sent by horseback. But worldwide information is going to be received from the angels. That's why you're going to have the angels proclaiming Babylon is fallen, is fallen. All right. So just keep that in the forefront of your mind, because when we get to the ending of this chapter, you're going to see what I'm saying about this perpetual day. All the judgments now are going to be completed in one day. And this I have covered in great detail in a previous study. This, I believe, is chapter 12, the seven thunders and the seventh trumpet. And I go into great detail in that study about what happens on the earth when time stops. It's a perpetual day. The sun doesn't move. All right. So let's get started. Now, the fall of the whore of Babylon will be so great that her judgment takes 3 chapters to announce it. Now, also remember, if you looked at part 1, Alahayam proclaimed judgment on Babylon way back in the day through his 2 prophets called Jeremiah and Yeshaiah, Jeremiah and Isaiah. Now, you can say, yes, it was against King Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire. But that prophecies, or those prophecies, because he gives several through these prophets, those prophecies were twofold, meaning that there are 2 events attached to those prophecies. One event takes place at the time of King Nebuchadnezzar and his empire, the Babylonian Empire, and a future Babylonian type empire. Babylon in the past, Babylon in the future. Let's put it that way. because the Babylonian system is coming. Well, it's always been here, but when she rises up to be the system, she's not really an empire. She'll be riding the empire, which is the NWO number 8 beast empire. Now, this is also to show us how devastating and destroyed this entity will be at the end. And it is the mercy of Alahayam speaking to us now, warning us to get out of these religious institutions. This is why he is long suffering, because of his people that are still trapped in these religious institutions they call churches, Hebrew Israelite camps, and what have you. All right? He wants us to know now it is time to come out of her. Come out from amongst her, from her midst. He proclaimed that all the way back with through Jeremiah. And now he is telling us today through Yawachanan that he wants us to come out of these religious institutions, because all they're doing is promoting pagan worship. They're causing you to worship gods. I wanted to say other gods, but Alahayam is not a god. The fallen angels are gods. But what these religions are doing is causing his people to worship idols, pagan worship, pagan gods. Now, if you remember way back, chapters 2 and 3, the letters to the 7 assemblies, these were letters of judgments. And with the exception of 2, the other 5 were speaking of religious institutions, religion. Let's call it religion, that our people are trapped under. Now, Smyrna, they did not get any reprimand per se, but they were warned to still overcome. And he was going to deal with those that call themselves Jews, but they're not. And he was cautioning them that they're going to suffer. Now, this is in connection to the northern kingdom, who is going to be martyred. This is the assembly of the martyrs. And they still have to overcome, because we have to keep choosing Alahayam to walk in his commandments and do them all along the way until we reach the end goal, which will be his kingdom. The other assembly, the assembly of Philadelphia, even though there were no reprimands whatsoever, this assembly has to do with the southern kingdom, because we are the first to be awakened and we will be the first to be regathered. However, he still cautioned us that we have to overcome. Now, when someone has to overcome something, it means that there's a possibility of resistance. Well, in our case, there's no possibility, there is resistance. And there will always be resistance coming against us to prevent us from walking the straight and narrow path. And that's why he said, overcome. And if we walk in obedience to him, we will overcome. So these 7 judgments given to the 7 assemblies are his warning to us, especially the 5, to come out of religion. If you're in a church and you think that that's where you belong, you are sadly mistaken, because that's not where the people of Alahayam, his chosen people, that's not where we belong. We belong with him. We do not belong under a pastor. We don't belong even under a Hebrew Israelite leader. We don't belong under anyone. We belong under him. We have to submit ourselves to him. But the problem is, and we'll see that later on in this study, a lot of people, they don't want to do their due diligence in studying the word of Alahayam for themselves. They want someone to come and feed them. They want someone to tell them what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, and even why to do it. And that means that you're spiritually weak, if you're spiritual at all, because you could be dead. You don't even know it. You're walking dead. And the only thing keeping you alive is eating regurgitated food from the mouth of a pagan worshiper. All right. So he's warning us to get out of these religious institutions. I've said before, chapter 13 extension, parts 3 and 4. I went in and I showed you what the Roman Catholic Church is all about and Christianity. I also touched on a few other religions. But the conclusion is all religions were created by this whore. That's why she's called the mother of harlots. That's why she's called Babylon the Great, because the greatest mystery, and that's why she's called mystery, Babylon the Great. That's what she's called. But the greatest mystery that no one else really seems to know or understand is that all religions on this earth were spawned by her. And you know when people will realize this? When it's too late, one, and when she proclaims it. That all the gods that every person in a religion is serving and worshiping are the same. But by that time, this happens, the 12 tribes will be tucked away. The rebels will be weeded out, and the righteous remnant would be tucked away safely. Okay. But if a person is convinced that they're on the right path, it will not be an easy task to persuade them otherwise. Nevertheless, we have our duty to warn everyone, and it is their responsibility to heed or not to heed. In the end, they cannot claim ignorance, and they cannot blame Alahayam for their demise. And I know a lot of people want to wait for the 12 tribes to go into the wilderness to figure things out. Oh, we can never know here in captivity. Oh, we can never worship here in captivity. So they're hoping that ignorance is going to be their excuse. Well, I didn't know. But we are already discovered that ignorance is a demon called Aspamara. So do you think Alahayam is going to accept your excuse of ignorance, knowing that ignorance comes from Aspamara? Do you think he's going to accept your excuse? He has given us the spirit of truth, his spirit of truth, Rawak o Amath, his Holy Spirit, to teach us, to reveal the truth to us. So we are without excuse. And we are still, even though people may not want to listen, we're still called to warn. Just like Noah, while he was building the ark, what was he doing? He was still preaching to the people on the earth. Did they listen to him? Of course not. Only 8 souls were saved. But do you think any of them can claim ignorance, especially if he is preaching righteousness to them? Turn away from your wicked ways. Stop doing um, worshiping idols. Return to Alahayam. No one is going to be excused, especially the ones today, because we have someone even greater than Noach, and that is the Spirit of truth. He is available to everyone. Noach was only available to those who could hear him. His reach was limited. That's why Hamashiach went down and preached to the souls under the earth, because the Ruach HaKodesh was not around to minister to the hearts and minds of people. And everyone must have a chance to say, well, no or yes. But the generation that is alive and has been alive when Ruach HaKodesh was released on the earth will be without excuses. There will be no excuse acceptable. And that's why Hamashiach went down in the bowels of the earth for 3 days. The people before he came on the earth did not have full access to what we have today. Even though our word is contaminated, it doesn't matter. Do you know why? Because Ruach Ol Amath can bring revelation. He can speak to us and tell us what's missing. He can speak to us and tell us what to chew and what to spit. He can show us what was corrupted. He has the truth. All right. Pagan religion is very persuasive in causing people to be drawn into her web of deceit. That's why so many people, in fact, the whole earth is involved in pagan religion, with the exception of the few that choose Alahayam. All the other peoples, even though those people that say, I'm not a religious person, I don't worship anything. As a matter of fact, I'm atheist. That is still a religion. That is still a religion. She preys on the vulnerable, the weak-minded, the broken, the desperate, and those who are easily influenced. It is not easy to live outside the boundaries of other groups where they have a level of comfort having others around. And I see this all the time. You know, it could be very lonely walking with truth. Very lonesome. Many people today, they want to be in a group because they find comfort in a group, even though the group might be persecuting them. I've seen this. I've seen this over and over and over again. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm happiest when I'm alone than when I'm with a group of people who don't know which direction to turn. They have all manner of devils to deal with in their lives, traumas, what have you. So they have all manner of attitudes, and they show forth this attitude to each other. I've seen it. I've been there. I've gone through this. All right? But people want to hang close to each other no matter how uncomfortable it is being in this group. And when I say uncomfortable, I'm not talking about the discomfort that Alahayam gives us to keep us on our toes. I'm talking about being a part of a group where you are living persecution day by day, torment day by day. There's always something up. I've seen this happening. I've seen this with groups, especially these Hebrew Israelite groups. I've seen it in churches too. I used to belong to a church, Pentecostal church. And you just see the mayhem in that church, the chaos, the confusion. People be praising and lifting their hands and crying out to the Most High with tears in their eyes. As soon as service is over, they're cursing each other. Cursing each other. I don't get it. Fighting. Well, not fist fighting, but fighting with words. And I'm thinking, you just came out of worship. And your tongue is like a serpent right now. It's like battery acid. What's wrong with you? But this is the mindset that we've been programmed to have. To always be in a group. To step out of a group, to walk alone, is a very difficult decision to make. Especially if you have to stand on what you believe in. And this is where the line is drawn in the sand. Are you willing to compromise so that you can be a part of a group? Or are you willing to stand alone on truth? Not too many people can do that. And that's why the broad way is filled with people. Whereas the narrow path, you can't even see the person in front of you, and you look behind you, can't see anyone behind you either. But you know people are on the path with you, but we are spread out. And that's the issue, especially with our people. To be totally reliant on Ruach HaKodesh takes spiritual submissiveness to Him, and many do not know how to do this. Many people do not know how to submit to Alahayam, to submit to His Ruach, but they would want to submit to a man or a woman, especially if they make them promises. Hey, I'm going to make you one of my top leaders. All right. I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to do that for you. But you got to follow me and do what I say to do. You got to teach the way how I teach. You can't contradict what I'm saying. Because if you contradict what I'm saying, then I know that you're not in alliance with me. You're not with me. You're against me. And this is another thing that happens in these Hebrew Israelite groups. It happens in the churches too, but I'm not dealing with the churches. I'm dealing with our people. And although our people are lost away in the churches, that's too bad for them. They're warned to come out, as well as out of the Hebrew Israelite groups. But I'm focusing on strictly our people that are supposed to be awakened. Those that are in the churches are not awakened. But the ones that claim that they're awakened and they're part of these groups, these camps, right? And they're talking and they have to show their alliance to their leaders by teaching, believing, and even walking in all the things that they say to do. And they can't have an independent thought in their head, because the first thing that leader is going to say, you're coming against me. And when that begins to happen, then there's conflict. And once there's conflict, then there's a decision that is going to be made. You can't be a part of this group if you are in conflict with what I'm teaching. Either you agree with what I'm teaching or you don't. And if you don't, then you need to go. We want you out of the group because you're going to cause more people to believe what you're saying, which will bring a big problem for me. I've seen this happen. I'm not talking off the top of my head. See this happening over and over again. So you have to have pure loyalty when you're in these camps. Loyalty, 100%. More loyalty to them than you could ever have to Alahayam. And heaven forbid, if you should try to correct that leader, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble. Okay. So a lot of people don't know how to be submissive to Alahayam. Because most of the time, if you are submissive to him, he'll tell you what you're sitting under is not him. And you go and you say this to your leader, they'll call you a rebel. So you don't want to say this because you don't want to risk being kicked out of the group. So you're gonna keep your mouth closed. You rather be submissive to your leaders than be submissive to Alahayam. The problem with our people, next, the line above. We have been taught throughout our lives to depend on self or others with knowledge or others or self will pull us through if we hang in there and keep trying. So basically what I'm saying is that we have been programmed from the times we were a little nub. When we start going to elementary school, we depend on the teachers to teach us. You go to university, we depend on the professors to teach us. Right? We have to embrace the knowledge that they give us, and we can't question it. Then we start our first job. We're dependent on our supervisors and our managers to train us up in the business. And no matter how high you go in the business, in that business that you're working in, there's always someone above you to train you up. And you're dependent on that person to help make big decisions because you're not qualified to do it. Even if you become the top brass, the top person in a business, then you have to deal with the owner of the business. The owner of the business dictates to you what you can do, what you cannot do. Now, if you own the business, are you free to do whatever you want to do? No, you cannot. You need to deal with lawyers because you have to make sure that your office, your business is operating legally. You have to deal with the government. And you have to deal with some alphabet agency or agencies to make sure that you have all the right credentials to operate your business. There's always someone above you that you have to depend on for the knowledge in order to function in this world. This is the way how this world that we live in has been built. We're dependent on others to move, to get ahead, to build. And of course, you're dependent on yourselves. We're dependent on everything and anything except Alahayam. But this is how we are programmed. And that's why Alahayam is always last on the list when it comes to being dependent on Him. We're being trained to think that a physical person or a physical thing is more um, secured than something that your eyes can't see and your ears can't hear. And because Alahayam, we can't see Him with our eyes and we can't hear Him with our ears. I mean, audibly, although He can speak audibly when He's ready. But He speaks to our hearts because He speaks to us through Ruach HaKadosh, His Spirit. He speaks to us through His Word. He speaks to us in dreams and visions. But we're programmed to think we need something tangible or physical to speak to us. Those boxes that you call a Lexi or Lexis or whatever, you don't mind that because it's tangible. You can speak to that. It's a speaker. Ask it questions. It'll tell you the date, the weather. You can even ask it philosophical questions. It'll give you an answer, not definitely pagan. All right. This is how we have been programmed. Must be tangible. And that's why Alahayam is always at the bottom. And the only time we cry out to Him is when we are so desperate we have nowhere else to turn. We're either on our dying bed, or we're so sick, or we're near a death. We're in a near-death experience. We call out to Him out of desperation. But when life is going good, we don't need Him. We don't need Him. And especially our people, we are the offspring of our forefathers. That no matter how good life is, or no matter how bad life is, we'll still try to hang in there and keep at it until it turns around for us. I'll give you an example. Now, when we were slaves, okay, let me just rephrase that. When we were physical slaves, because we're mental slaves, we're still in a form of slavery because of the system that we're living under. We had to live on a plantation, and we have to serve the master, the massa. When they claimed slavery was abolished, quote unquote, abolished, that meant that we now are free, quote unquote. Now we have different states in America that are predominantly white. I don't care. I call them what they are, white. And they hate us. And it's mostly those states where slaves were used, like Mississippi and Carolinas, the Carolinas. I don't know if both North and South Carolina, but those kind of states where they had the Triple K operating, where they murdered our people. Do you know we still have our people living there? They're living there. They're still there. After all these generations of persecution, they're still living there. Why? Because that's where your grandpapa was, your grandma, your great-great-grandpa. And so you have a life there. You have history there. You have a mortgage now. You've built up your life there, and you don't want to leave. And now, racism is rising to the surface. Not that it never went away. It never went away. But now, because of the powers that be that are running this world, that are allowing any and everything to happen, to occur, because no there's no one in place to keep order. The only people that have rights in this world are the alphabet group, the rainbow people. All right. And so racism is rising to the surface faster and faster, so quickly, because it was just hiding in the shadows until it felt safe enough to come out. Because back in the day, the 70s or whatnot, they had a lot of protesting against Vietnam wars and all these different things. They had the 60s, the 70s, but racism never left. It just went underground. But my point is that people are still living in these states and expect to have rights. I'm talking about Negroes. They're still living in these racist states and still expect to have rights and to have these people to love them. What is wrong with our people? The world will never love us. They don't like us. They don't love us. They hate us. Okay, get out and find a place where you can live in peace. Why are you still living in Mississippi? And then you have all the different aggravations and the persecutions and all the torment, and people are complaining and whining and crying and saying, "Why? What have I done to you?" It's called hatred, and it's geared towards our people. It's going to get worse. You need to come out. So I don't feel sorry for our people that are persecuted in those places. I don't feel sorry for them. I said, good. Maybe someone will pick sense and get out. Sell your things and get out. What history? The only history that we have in these places is the history of slavery. Is that anything to be proud about? Get out. So when I hear them being persecuted, I just like roll my eyes and I have nothing to say. You get what you deserve. How can you feel sorry for someone who is insisting on living in a place where people hate you? You need to come out. There are other states in America that you can live peaceably. There are other countries that you can live in peaceably without having to go through this torment. And the reason why you're going through the torment is because you're stubborn and rebellious. You're rebelling against Alahayam, because he is speaking to our people and he's telling our people it's soon time for your regathering, but you need to come out. You need to make that first step to trust me by coming out. The people don't want to listen. They don't want to listen. Unbelievable. And then you got the ones out there like, I don't know why this keep happening to us. Well, it's called a curse. It's called a curse. And until we are obedient to Alahayam, we will always be fighting against this hatred. We have to go to the places where he is leading his people, where he can protect us. Simple. But people want to hang in there. Maybe things will turn around. Maybe they'll start to love us. Good luck. So the problem with our people, we hang in there trying, but nothing comes of it unless you're a sellout. And that's another thing too. Our people, a lot of them are sellouts. A lot of them are sellouts. And I would say, just like a lot of them are sellouts, we have others that are not even our people. They look like us, but they're teaching our people how to be sellouts. And who are you selling out to? The devil. You're selling out to these um, secret societies and becoming part with them. For what? Money. They get involved in the entertainment business, sports, whatever. Money. Just do what I tell you to do, and I'll make sure you get paid well. Because there are a lot of young people looking up to you. So we want to use you like an idol so that they will imitate everything that you do. And if you notice, a lot of these basketballers and stuff, look what kind of lifestyle they're running. Well, not running, but living. You got that one with this child. You can't even tell if it's a male or female. But we support it. We support it. That's our child. We support it. So now people that admire this basketballer is going to be like, oh, well, if my child is wanting to come out or change who it is, well, I want to support it too because my idol supports his child. All these different things that are influencing our people to be sellouts. Instead of going by the word of Alahayam, where he created male and female, no, they want to scrub that now. Scrub it from the scriptures. I'm telling you, they're going to rewrite the scriptures. There's not going to be male and female in the scriptures anymore. It's all going to be androgyny. Just like how they're training up our little babies. Well, not mine, yours. Your little babies. To identify as a cat. Or a mold on the wall. This was happening. All because of this whore. Paganism. The worship of self. That's another form of paganism. And wanting you to sell out. Okay. Now, if you're sincere in your heart, Alahayam will block every way of your success to guide you always to Him as our provider, the one who we must always depend on. Many see these closed doors as obstacles and become despondent and turn away from Him. The few that realize He is the one closing the doors, there are few that realize He is the one closing the doors because there's something else that He wants from us. And there is a direction where He is guiding us. And I know, even in my life, I had only simple occupations. Nothing extravagant to speak of. Why? Because when I tried to do something extravagant, He closed the door. And He kept closing the doors until I realized, I'm just happy with this job that I'm doing. I'm just happy because I have more freedom than if I was working in an office. Right? Plus, I make more money. But for me, it was never about making money. It was about my own personal freedom. I hated the fact that I'm locked into a building at a desk all the day long. And thankfully, He led me to an occupation where I had the freedom to go in and come out. But it wasn't easy at first because we've been trained again and programmed to go after that pie in the sky. All right? And so you go and you do all your studies and you try to build a business or you try to get involved in a business and it just doesn't work. the doors keep closing. Well, that's good because that's Alahayam who's doing it to us because he has something better in store for us. Now, imagine if I was successful in all the businesses that I've started. Would I be here speaking to you right now? No, I wouldn't. I'd be too absorbed in keeping my business afloat in these terrible times. But when everything took a dip 3 years ago, it didn't really affect me per se because I didn't have anything to lose. Never had a mortgage, never wanted one. All right. But people that had mortgages and jobs that dictated to them that they need to go and take the tax on or else you lose your job, and if you lose your job you lose your income and you lose all your assets. You lose your house, you lose your car, you lose your children can't go to school. So you're between a rock and a hard place. You don't know which way to turn. And so you make the decision, and I know many of our people made that decision to go and take it so that they can keep working, so that they can keep having money to do the things that they love to do. But they're the sellouts. Those ones are also called sellouts. All right? You've sold your soul for what? $1. Because at the end of the day, that paper money is going to be nothing, ones and zeros. It's not going to exist anymore. And you can't use it as an excuse to buy your way into the kingdom. In fact, you can't use it as an excuse for your decision, and you can't use it as a way to buy your way into the kingdom. You can't buy your way into the kingdom of heaven. That's the wonderful thing about Alahayam. You can't buy him and you can't buy your way in. And I love that. But so if you're going through some tough times, know that the days are growing shorter and shorter. Soon he will regather us. It's only a matter of time. All we need to do is hang in there, worship him. Worship him. Do not complain. Do not worry. I can give you stories of my own life when I had nothing. I had nothing. Nothing at all. And the Father caused strangers to come and take care of me. Strangers. They didn't know what I was going through. He knows what we have need of before we even ask him. But he wants to see what you're going to do. Are you going to trust him? Are you going to keep believing in him? Or are you going to become despondent and turn away from him? Sometimes he shakes us up to see what comes up, what floats to the top. It's not easy to go in his direction, as it is always contrary to what we want to do. This is how you know for a fact that this is his direction for our lives and not Satan trying to mislead us. Most of the time, the path that opens up to us is the path that we least want to take. Why? Because that was not my plan. That was not my plan. My plan, just like everyone else, go to university, get a really nice job, get a house, get a car, get married, get children, retire. Well, before you retire, you send your children to private schools and good schools, then to good universities, then it's time to retire and live happily ever after. Right? That's the plan that's being fed to us. Anything that deviates from that path, it is Alahayam. Can't find a husband, can't find a wife, because you can't find a good woman or you can't find you know, a good man. I'm not saying that there are none out there, but your paths aren't crossing. Can't seem to find a good job. You have all the qualifications, but you still can't land that perfect job. As a matter of fact, you have to work beneath your educational level, that so called educational level. If you don't have a husband, you can't have children. And if you don't have the money, how are you going to get a house? You got to keep renting. And then all of a sudden, this path opens up where, okay, well, I wasn't really going in that direction, but there's nowhere else to turn. That's Him leading you away from that lifestyle where a lot of our people are trapped in. This one person asked a question: is there a job out there where I can make so much money, where I can make enough money where I'm not living month to month? This is not the time to be asking these questions. This is a time for us to buckle down and get ourselves in order, get our lives in order, get ourselves ready, be prepared. This is not a time to be looking to make money. This is the nature of Yashraal, all 12 tribes. This has always been our forefathers' problem in the past, and this is our problem still today. Mammon, wealth, substance. That's why they're going after reparations. All those things are traps. And you think the Father is going to interrupt your path and your plans? He already knows who belongs to Him. He interrupts their plans, the ones that belong to Him. But the other ones, He said, go ahead. You do whatever you want to do. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to destroy you. Never really belonged to me. Because I knew your heart from the very beginning. Even before you were born, I knew your heart. Okay, let's get started. Revelation chapter 14, revised verse 6 and 7. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works. In the cup which she has filled, fill to her double. How much she has glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her. For she said in her heart, I sit as a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrows. So she sits as a queen. Her husbands aren't dead, because that's what a widow is. And she shall see no sorrows. There's nothing to grieve me. I got it all. For all the evil that this entity has created on the earth, Alahayam will cause her to receive double. And it will be a great punishment for her and anyone still connected to her at this point of time. That's why He said, come out of her midst. He said it to our forefathers from the prophets' mouths, Jeremiah and Yasha'oyah. Now He's saying it to us today through the written word of Yawachanan. The cup that she has is to give us the idea of her storing up for herself in a container all her wickedness, which she used to cause the inhabitants of the earth to follow after her and do all the wickedness that she has provoked them to do. So in her cup, she's filled it with wickedness, the blood of the martyrs, the blood of the innocents, through her wickedness. So, however big that cup is, she's going to receive double portion in fullness from Alahayam. Let's look at Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 29. Call together the archers against Babylon, all you that bend the bow. Camp against it round about. Let none thereof escape. Recompense her according to her work, according to all that she has done, do unto her. So even way back then, the Father was calling on taking revenge on this Babylon. Back then it was a empire, and this time it is a system, a religious system. For she has been proud against Yahweh, against the Holy One of Yashrael. Therefore shall her young men fall in the streets, and all her men of war shall be cut off in that day. Remember, she said, I sit as a queen, and I'm no widow. So now her young men are going to fall in the streets. He's going to destroy the people that worship her and worship the way how she worships. And all her men of war shall be cut off in that day. Men of war meaning people that her armies. All right, said Yahweh. Verse 31. Behold, I am against you, O you most proud, said Yahweh Alahayam, O Sabaoth, Yahweh Alahayam of hosts. For your days come, the time that I will visit you, meaning I will remember you. Verse 32, and the most proud shall stumble and fall, and none shall raise him up. And I will kindle a fire in his cities, and it shall devour all round about him. So anyone who is partaking of this system, whether it is there in that city or in their own cities, Alahayam is going to destroy it all. Because Babylon will have her extensions in other cities. So he's going to wipe it all out and destroy it all. Alahayam has sent his judgments against Babylon through his prophets of old, and the empire called Babylon was judged and conquered. Yet its evil influence is still around even today. Because the Satan that possessed this empire is still here. Now, let me say this. Yes, Alahayam spoke his prophecy against Babylon the empire. When Babylon the empire fell, the Satan that possessed it never was destroyed. That kingdom was taken down, but the Satan was not destroyed, so that Satan is still about the place. And until the Satans are cast into the lake of fire, they will still remain on the earth and do their wicked deeds, carry out their wicked agendas. And that's why if you look at all religions on this earth, they all point to Babylon. Because even the Babylonian Empire, what they were worshiping, they got, yes, from Egypt, ancient Egypt. And what ancient Egypt got was from ancient Babel, which is the namesake of Babylon. And who was running Babel in those days? Nimrod. And that was after the flood. And before the flood, it was the fallen angels with the children of Cain, who is Cain. And before that, it was Lucifer in heaven. When he turned, by the way, Lucifer is Gadriel, when he turned worship upon himself and he corrupted worship. That's where paganism comes from. corrupt worship. So Babylon, even though you see the prophets prophesying against an empire, has to do with something more than an empire. It has to do with the spirit behind the empire. Because the same spirit behind that empire is behind Babylon the whore. Same spirit. We're going to see it. Same spirit. Same evil Satan. Same wickedness. He was not destroyed. Speaking of the Satan that possessed the empire of Babylon, he was not destroyed, and until he is cast into the lake of fire, the evil influence of these Satans and their children, the Nephilim, will still be around. The Nephilim children, the children of the fallen are called the Nephilim. When they were destroyed, their physical bodies were destroyed, but not their spirits. And they still roam the earth. Why? Because they are a hybrid. So the Father couldn't put them in the abyss. He allowed them to roam the earth. So now they are a part of Satan's armies. They're the foot soldiers, the unclean spirits. So they are still around. And it is for this reason why the judgment against Babylon is still hanging over her. And it will not be completed until she is totally destroyed, and it's Satan as well. And Alahayam himself is going to deal with this Satan, with Babylon. But she's not the only one with a cup in her hand. There's another cup, and it sits in the hand of Alahayam. It is also called his cup of fury. And this is how he pours out his judgments. So let's read Psalm 75, verse 8. For in the hand of Yahweh there is a cup, and the wine is red. That red there means it's boiling, it's fermenting, it's going to bring turmoil and trouble. It is full of mixture, meaning it's mixed. What is it mixed with? You're going to see two kinds of wine that is in his cup. One that is full of mixture, and the other one, it is not. When you see full of mixture, that means that there's a combination of things that he is causing to happen. First the judgments, and then the condemnation, the destruction. All right? Judgment and destruction. And the second time when you see this, and it says that it's not a mixture, or it's not mixed, it means that it is just destruction. We're going to see that coming up. Let's look at Jeremiah chapter. It is full of mixture. Let me finish read that. That means it's mixed. And he pours out of the same, but the dregs thereof, all the wicked of the earth shall wring them out and drink them. So he is giving them their judgments, and he's also going to condemn them, destroy them for all eternity. Jeremiah chapter 25 verse 12. And it shall come to pass, when 70 years are accomplished, that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, said Yahweh, for their iniquity, and the land of the Chaldeans, and will make it perpetual desolations. And we know these are the 70 years prophesied by Jeremiah, as well as Danayal. And we know that those 70 years have a threefold prophecy to fulfill. 3-4 events attached to that prophecy. Verse 15, because we leave from verse 12 all the way now to verse 15. For thus saith Yahweh, Alahayam ol Yashwa'al unto me, take the wine cup of this fury in my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send you to drink it. And they shall drink and be moved. Gaosh, for moved, means to quake, shaken up. So they're going to be moved and be mad because of the sword, that's war, that I will send among them. Then took I the cup cup at Yahweh's hand and made all the nations to drink unto whom Yahweh had sent me. No. Let me ask you a question. Do you think this is a literal cup? No, the cup that the whore has is not a literal cup. The cup that Alahayam has is not a literal cup. His cup of fury or his cup of wrath speaks of judgment. And this judgment is not a judgment and I'll define that in a minute. This judgment has to do with condemnation and destruction. All right? Now, we have to be careful when we hear the word judgment that we don't jump automatically to destruction or condemnation, because when Alahayam, he judges his people, the righteous and the unrighteous. When he judges us and we are deemed righteous, then he rewards us accordingly. If we are considered or deemed unrighteous, then we're punished. That is his judgment based on what he has judged us on, based on his standards. But here, his cup of wrath has to do with him already passing the judgment, but he's still giving them the judgment, and that judgment includes destruction. Jeremiah chapter. So therefore, before I finish, Jeremiah, when he gave the nations to drink of his cup, that means Jeremiah was given the judgments, the judgment of condemnation to speak to the nations. That's what that means. Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 12. For thus saith Yahweh, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken. And are you he that shall altogether go unpunished? If you're going to drink of my cup of wrath, you think I'm not going to punish you? You shall not go unpunished, but you shall surely drink of it. And this was the judgment set against Edom, the Edomites, who is Osha or Esau, the children of Esau. Now let's look at Revelation chapter 14, verse 10. This is according to the Bible. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive the mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Alahayam, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. So this wine of wrath of Alahayam without mixture means automatic condemnation. There's no judgment here, because he already warned us that anyone who takes the mark of the beast, you will be condemned. So he doesn't need to judge that situation. He doesn't need to judge the person who takes the mark of the beast or worship the image or has the number of his name. So without mixture means automatic condemnation, automatic destruction. Alahayam's wrath is compared to wine to show us that his wrath has been fermenting, brewing, like you do with real wine, to get it to the consistency that he wants it to be, not you. He wants it to be. So Alahayam, he has several levels of his wrath. All right? When he pours out his wrath, it's because the boiling point has been reached. When it comes to the southern kingdom, because he's dealing with the southern kingdom first, there's a boiling point for the southern kingdom. And when that boiling point has reached, he's going to destroy the wicked amongst us. Then he's going to turn his attention to the northern kingdom. And they too, because many of them are going to choose to go on the side of the beast, the NWO. And when his boiling point, and trust me, his boiling point is very short now, because he's been tolerating us for generations. So the boiling point between the southern kingdom to the northern kingdom is going to be a very short gap, because he's going to break out against them as well. He's going to cause the beast, the beast empire to destroy a lot of them. Some of them are going to be the wicked, and the others are going to be the martyrs. And then finally, the third level of his cup of wrath will be against the inhabitants on the earth. That would include the whore, the beast empires, the anti-Messiah, the inhabitants on the earth that worship them, and even the ones that don't. They all have to face his wrath, because the ones that don't worship the anti-Messiah and the beast and the whore and whomever else, they need to be shaken up. Remember what he says about giving them the cup to drink of, and they shall drink. This is Jeremiah chapter 25, verse 15. He said, and they shall drink and be moved. He's going to cause them to be shaken up. Some of them are going to go mad because of what has been hiding. Yes, they may not want to worship the beast, but they're not going to want to worship him either. And you can't be in the middle choosing no one. You got to be on one side or the other. And if you're not on his side, you're on the beast side. So he's going to destroy you. And this is for the Gentile nations. All right. So he has a degree to which his blood, his wrath boils. All right. Let me read on. The same is with the wrath of Alahayam. He has a time appointed and the degree to which his wrath must boil before it is poured out on its intended recipients. That's why I started with the southern kingdom, then the northern kingdom, and then all the Gentile nations after that. Alahayam's patience with the inhabitants of this earth and even his people is great. That he has not cast all of us away quickly or immediately. So the fact that he is long suffering, because really and truly we have done so much wickedness all these generations, by all means, by all rights, he should have cast us all away. But he is long suffering, and he knows how this is all going to end, and it will have a favorable result in the end. So that's why he is called long suffering. But by the time his judgments come around, no one can say that he is unjust. None of us, not our brethren, no one can say, well, you didn't give me enough time to repent. Well, I didn't know. They can't say that. They have to hang their heads in shame, because when he reveals to them all the measures that he took to bring truth to them, they will have to hang their heads in shame. So no one can say that he's unjust. He is long suffering, giving us every opportunity to change our ways and to return to him. But for the wicked, he has a time appointed to destroy them from off the face of the earth, and that will include even our rebellious brethren. Psalms 86, verse 15. But you, O Yahweh, are Alahayam, full of compassion and gracious, long-suffering and plenteous in mercy and truth. That's who he is, full of mercy and truth. The time of the whore has come, and he will exact his punishment upon her for all that she has done. She proclaims herself as a queen. And that is a hint again at the fact that this is a pagan religious system. For there's only one who is king, and that is Alahayam. So the fact that she proclaims herself as a queen, it means that she is as high as he is, if not higher. And anyone that proclaims themselves above him, or even to equate themselves to him, is pagan. There's only one Alahayam, Yahweh. She sits as a queen, showing us that this entity is one that reigns to control and never to be controlled. She sits as a queen, so Alahayam would never be able to say anything to her because she's queen. She's in control. That's why we know she's pagan. She calls the shots and no one else. No wonder the kings of the earth will hate her enough to destroy her. Alahayam refers to her as the queen because this is also the goddess, the queen of heaven. That is also a part of this religious system. So the queen of heaven is Mary, Eve, that they call Adam's wife. You know, they call her by that name. That's not Adam's wife's name is Hawa, not Eve. But Eve, Mary, Astarte, Isis, Semiramis, Isis, I think I call that name, and Ashtoreth. They're all the same goddess, but with different names based on the civilization that worships them. But they're all called the Queen of Heaven. Jeremiah chapter 44:17. And before we read that, I just also want to add, and the reason why the Queen of Heaven is considered part of this religious system is because the Queen of Heaven is associated with the worship of Mary. They call her the Mother of God. And if Mary is worshipped by the Roman Catholic Church, then naturally it goes without saying that they're worshiping the Queen of Heaven. And this is all part of the Roman Catholic Church that will evolve into the Babylonian system called the Whore of Babylon. Okay, let's move on. Jeremiah chapter 44 verse 17. But we will certainly do whatsoever thing goes forth out of our own mouth to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings and our princes, in the cities of Yahweh. So these are the children of Yahweh speaking this. And in the streets of Yarowashalam. For then had we plenty of victuals, and were well, and saw no evil. And this is the problem with our people in the past and even now. In the past, when our people were living in the land safely and all they had to do is worship Alahayam, it was not sufficient for them to keep doing that. No, they had to look for trouble by looking to other nations and see what they're doing, how they're worshiping, and adopting their idolatrous ways. And then what happened? Let's see. Verse 18. And before I go on, let me also say this. Not only did they have plenty of food to eat, but they were dwelling safely in their lands because the Most High put the fear in the hearts of the nations that surrounded them. So no one came out against them because they knew someone else was fighting their battles and they will be destroyed. So no one wanted to fight with the children of Yashrael, 12 tribes. No one. including these ones, the children of Yahweh. Verse 18, but since we left off to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things. Now suddenly you have no food, and we've been consumed by the sword. So now the nations around them break out against them in wars to destroy them, and by famine, because the Most High, the first thing he does when he's bringing judgment against our people is to withhold the rain, because we have the former rain and the latter rain, and they both help with the crops, the harvest of the wheat and the barley and the other fruits and fruit bearing trees. But once the heaven becomes like brass and the earth becomes like iron, then guess what? There's no food. And then on top of that, you got to fight all these wars, and you're fighting by yourself. And if you're fighting by yourselves, guess who's getting the victory? Your enemies. All because they worship the Queen of Heaven. Verse 19. And when we burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and pour out offerings unto her, did we make her cakes to worship her? And pour out drink offerings unto her without our men? Verse 20. Then Jeremiah said unto all the people, to the men and to the women, and to all the people who had given him that answer, saying, that the incense that you burned in the cities of Yahweh and in the streets of Jerusalem, you and your fathers and your kings and your princes and the people of the land, did not Yahweh remember them? And came it not into his mind? He remembers. He remembers the evil that we do, just like he remembers the good that we do. So that Yahweh could no longer bear because of the evil of your doings, and because of the abominations which you have committed. Therefore is your land a desolation and an astonishment and a curse, without an inhabitant as at this day, because you have burned incense, and because you have sinned against Yahweh and have not obeyed the voice of Yahweh, nor walk in his law, nor in his statutes, nor in his testimonies. Therefore this evil is happened unto you as at this day. And for our people today, if they will only read the scriptures, then they don't need to ask the question, why is this happening to us? You don't need to ask that question. What you need to ask is, how do we get from here? How do we move on from here? And let me say this. First, you need to repent. And you need to stop whatever you're doing and return to the true and pure worship of Alahayam. That's what you need to do. And when we begin to do that, our lives are literally going to turn around 180 degrees. So now we're not walking in fear of our shadow, wondering where we're going to get the next meal from, because we will walk in certainty that Alahayam has our best interests at heart and he will provide for us. But the problem with our people, the only thing on their minds is money, mammon, provision. And the thing is, when he feeds them well, do you think they give him thanks? Do you think that they remember him? No, then they go out and play the harlot. They break Shabbat. They eat unclean foods. And they use excuses, well, we're not on the law, we're on the grace. Because that's what the Christian churches have been teaching. And that fits us fine, because then it means it gives us permission to do all the things that Alahayam does not want us to do. That's the problem with our people. Rebellious to the core. All they got to do is read the scriptures, and need to read it with understanding. In the same manner in which we are judged and punished by Alahayam for our rebellion, so will the rest of the inhabitants on this earth. None shall escape his judgments, and none shall escape his punishments. There's a remedy to avoid this kind of judgment and subsequent punishment, and that is to live in holiness and righteousness, always obeying all of his laws and commandments. But this is not the way of the whore and anyone who follows after her. Oh no, if you are trapped in a church somewhere, the whore got you worshiping Jesus. The whore got you worshiping Christ, Lord God. The whore got you worshiping something, but not Alahayam. Got you worshiping on Sunday. Got you worshiping on Saturday. So you worship on the day of the sun. You worship on the day of Saturn. Because you call those days your Sabbaths or Shabbat. That's what the whore is doing. And all you're doing is building for yourself the wrath of Alahayam. When he pours out his wrath upon you, there's going to be destruction. Total destruction. So many things that our people are doing because the church doctrines and the Hebrew Israelite camp doctrines give them permission to do these things. No one wants to read the word of Alahayam for themselves anymore. Okay. So, but this is not the way of the whore, anyone who falls after her, and she is deceived into thinking that there's none who can stand against her. This is because for a long time, a very long time, she has sat in the shadows, controlling the inhabitants on the earth through her religions. And so her pride has risen to great heights, where now, as the great whore of Babylon, sitting upon the scarlet beast, she feels invincible. This is what the Father does. This is what Abba does. Gives them enough rope, and then they hang themselves. This is the same pride that caused Lucifer to fall in the first place. And finally, now, this is the same pride that will drive this whore to her destruction. Oh, no one can touch me. I've been operating for generations, for thousands and thousands of years, so no one can touch me. But that's pride and that's deception. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 18, Pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. And that goes for people too. People walking around with a lot of pride, thinking that how could we be wrong? We are a lot of people together in a group. How can we be wrong? You got the leaders thinking, how can we be wrong? We got all these followers and get all the praises from the followers. How can we be wrong? That's pride. Because the people aren't worshiping Alahayam, they're worshiping you. Let's go on to verse 8 to 10 in Revelation chapter 14 revised. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is Yahweh Alahayam who judges her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is your judgment come. Now I have these words on the line, in 1 day, and then in verse 10, in 1 hour. Now remember, at this point of time when the whore of Babylon rises up, it will be at a time where there is a perpetual day. All right? The world will be living in a perpetual day until all the judgments are completed. Once the northern kingdom makes it into our land and they're safe, dwelling in safety, then the Father is going to cause time to stop. Well, time stops just as they're entering into the land. But anyways, time stops. And the reason why time stops is because the sun stops moving. So it's going to be a perpetual day to complete the judgments. And he has done this before. Remember when Yahweh, who is Joshua, prayed to Alahayam to cause the sun to stand still. And the sun stood still for 2 days. So the sun did not move, it did not go down. And what happened before is going to happen again. But this time around, the sun is going to stand still to to allow the judgments to be completed, because we have not seen the 7 vials or bowls of the wrath of Alahayam being poured out yet. So that's why it says here her plagues are going to come in one day. And not only in one day, but the destruction is going to happen in 1 hour. Now, if the sun isn't moving, how can you estimate that it's 1 hour? Because he's saying, he's giving us an idea that how quickly her destruction is going to come. Because there are no more hours. There's no more time. Go back and read. Go back to the study, like I said, in chapter 12, revised, that is, the 7 thunders and the 7th trumpet goes in to explain this phenomenon that's going to happen on the earth. He's going to stop time. Because all along the way, since the 6th earthquake, he's been weaning the earth off time. He's shortened the days and the nights until he completely stops time. We're going to go back to living in eternity. Adam and Hawa, when they were living in the Garden of Eden, they were living in eternity. Time only started when they left the garden, because in the garden there was no sun. Alahayam was the light in the garden. And they were living in perpetual light. So there was no need for the sun or the moon. There was no darkness anywhere in the Garden of Eden. They only experienced darkness for the first time when they left the garden. And it will be like that again. But the beginning of it will be to bring about the judgments. And part of the judgments will be the sun burning the people. But at the end, when Hamashiach comes, there'll be no more need for sun or the moon, because there'll be no more darkness on the earth. All right? There'll be no more darkness on the earth. He is going to be the light on the earth. And then after the 1,000 years, then he is going to renew everything. He is going to, the old earth and the old heavens are going to flee away, and he's going to bring the new heavens, the new earth, and the new city called Yerushalayim from the heavens. He's going to bring it all down and replace the old with the new. All right. Now, the only way that time will be known is by Alahayam. He's the one who will tell us, and we will know by the events that will be taking place. That's why he will have his angels making proclamation on the earth. So all those foolish people out there talking about the 144,000 are going to come back and preach to the earth, you have no idea what you're talking about. Once he gathers his people, he's not releasing them on this earth again. So for 1 hour, a very short period of time, in other words, the judgments are going to be taking place in this city. All right. Now Alahayam will judge this whore in 1 hour and exact his punishment upon her in 1 day, and yet it will be finished in 1 hour. It will not take very long for the whore to be destroyed, and it will be sudden as well, completely unexpected from those who will live deliciously with her. All right. Alahayam has been keeping record of this whore and have tolerated her, as he has his time appointed for wrath to fall upon her. It is also for our sakes that he suffered her this long, because many of us were caught up in her midst. Many of the brethren were involved in one of her religions or another, including me. I was in the church. I didn't know any better. And my family, they were all in the church. I'm the only one in my family that's been awakened. They don't want to hear anything coming from me, but that's okay. But he awakes those that are his, and those who remain sleeping, they will just fall along the way. Because you cannot claim ignorance. And the reason why he has not awakened them, and I'm not speaking only of my family, I'm speaking of others as well, is because they don't want to be awakened. They have never chosen him. All that they do is a facade, a pretense. Their hearts are far away from him. Far, far away. They worship him with their lips, but their hearts are far away from him. Do you know how you know when someone's heart is close to him? They start asking questions. And that's what happened to me when I was in the church. I start asking questions. You say this, but the scriptures say that. Explain that to me. I don't understand it. And I was labeled a troublemaker. All because I asked a question. I just truly and genuinely wanted to learn and know and understand why I have this question in my mind and in my heart. And then you hear the preaching and the teaching and you have more questions. That is the spirit of Rawak, the spirit of Alahayam, Rawak HaKadash, working inside of us. But then you have those that accept the doctrines and they run with it. Rawak HaKadash can't work with them because they will resist him. And that's why a lot of our brethren, a lot of our family members, they don't want to hear us. They'll even call you crazy. They will call you crazy. They will call you a conspiracy theorist. I always see, I keep saying controversy theorist, but my thoughts go way too fast for my speech, right? Or my speech go faster than my thoughts. In other words, what I mean is conspiracy theorist. That is the correct word. So if you ever hear me say controversy theorist, I can't even get it out. That's what I'm talking about. Conspiracy theorist. I've been called a conspiracy theorist, and I don't mind because all the conspiracies that I speak about has come to pass. All right? So it's okay. The Father has for us a new family, new friends, and they're all going to be wholesome, just like Him. So it's okay. Let them mock you, let them spurn you, let them criticize you. You just keep worshiping Alahayam and hold on to the promise. He has a promise, He has an inheritance waiting for us, and it's beyond our imagination. It is so great that we cannot imagine how great it is. So that's why our family members, out of a huge family, you might find one person who believes in Alahayam. All the others, they're in churches or Hebrew camps or whatnot. But you're on the outside looking in. And you feel so alone. But I've said this before. It is better to be alone now because later on we will not be alone. Be alone now with the truth. All right? Because you don't want to go where they're going. If they don't repent, you don't want to go there. So hang in there. So He has suffered us all these generations, because we've been caught up in religion. I was in a church for 4 years, and then he brought me out because of misery. I was completely in misery, and I could not figure it out. I thought that the church was supposed to be a safe haven. When things go wrong in your life, this is where you turn to. But what happened in my situation, the people that I turned to, which would be the leadership in the church, had wanted nothing to do with me. And as a matter of fact, they treated me like I was the enemy. And I couldn't figure it out. I was hurting. I was broken. I was without. And yet they turned away from me. And I'm talking about the top leaders in the church. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be treated this badly in the church, I might as well go out there and see what is out there, because I'm certain that there's something better out there. Right? So I left the church. But I never went back into the world. Couldn't, because the Most High, He had me in His hand. He had reins on me. And I wasn't even interested. But I just thought that there must be another place that I can go to, another church, another assembly, someplace I can go to. Couldn't find another church. I went to hundreds of churches, and I'm not exaggerating. They're all cut from the same mold. So when I tell you that all these denominations, they're all the same. They all have the same hang-ups and hang-downs. They're all a bunch of rebels. And then they walk around in their fancy clothes and think that they're people, they're righteous, but they're filled with self-righteousness. Right? They don't really have love in their hearts. And they're very judgmental. All these things that I see in the scriptures, that is the opposite of who they are. And I'm like, wait a second. The so-called, what they claim the church is in the book of Acts, is nothing like these people. The church in the book of Acts operated in love, and they were giving and sharing and caring. But these ones in these buildings that they call churches, they're a bunch of rebels. And they're ready to stone you. Right? So, no, I get myself out of there really fast. And I left the church, and I was out of the church for 20-something years. Never went back in. I tried. It's not that I didn't try, because I thought that maybe I will find a place. Maybe my old feeding ground has changed, but my old feeding ground just got worse and worse and worse and worse. I started seeing all the demons, all the unclean spirits in there, and say, okay, you know what? Time for me to just cut this thing loose and just be on my own. And I tried Hebrew camps. Don't think that I didn't try. But they turn out to be losers to me. Right? Because when you have someone trying to direct your path, when you know that the Most High is saying, no, don't go left, go right. And this person is telling you, no, you need to go left. No, you can't. No, I listen to Abba. That's who I listen to. And so I took myself away from people, and I just studied and learned for myself. But I knew that this day was coming, because He had always told me, I'm raising you up to be my voice in the end times, to proclaim to my people the truth. That is what He spoke to me way back when I was in the church. I didn't understand what He was talking about. I thought He wanted me to be a pastor in a church, but I had no idea that my path was going to come in this direction, because I wasn't awakened to the fact that I was of Yahweh. I had no idea. But this is the path that I'm now on, and I'm very happy. Very, very happy. So we had to be awakened from our sleep, and the deception of our fake identity rolled away. And the deception of our fake identity rolled away. Then we had to discover the true Creator, or Abba, to learn of His ways and to walk in them. If Alahayam had acted quickly, then we all would have perished. But he suffered long for our sakes. Now, when he sent his judgments on this whore, he will not deliberate long, only 1 hour, short period of time. And her sentence will be carried out within that one day, that perpetual day. You're going to see later on, as part of the vials, that he's going to destroy that city again. He's going to turn to that city and cause it to be divided in 3 parts. So he's not finished with this whore until he's finished pouring out his wrath. This is just the beginning, in other words. So it'll be over in 1 hour. This means that it will be all very quick. Everything is going to happen quickly. Even the vials as they come is going to come quickly. There's only one punishment fitting for the whore, and that is fire. So that's why she was burning. To burn her to the ground, and not just physical burning with fire, but the spiritual burning as well. The lake of fire. Alahayam did not create hell or the lake of fire for people. But if anyone decides to transgress his laws and not seek repentance, then this will be the place where they will be spending their eternity. The kings of the earth is in reference to the rulers or leaders that will trade with her and will grow very wealthy because of her. They've been living deliciously with her. She has been feeding them wealth. And they're giving their loyalty to her in exchange. They will lament only because they will not be able to trade with her anymore. And there will not be anyone who will trade with them. Therefore, their enterprise will be immediately shut down and their wealth will dry up. So you have to remember that this whore is going to be the center for commerce as well as pagan worship. And later on, you're going to see how all that is going to unfold, what's going to cause her to become the center. And all the merchandise on the earth is going to flow through her to the rest of the inhabitants on the earth. Because the merchants are going to come from wherever they come from and sell to her. And then she's going to be the distributor on the earth. Remember, the earth is going to be one land mass again. So if you want anything, you got to go through her. But the problem is with these ones that are going to trade with her, the merchants, the sailors, the ship masters, those ones, guess where they're getting their stuff from? They're pirates. They go around to villages and cities and they steal to get the resources from other people so that they can sell to her. But we're going to get to that pretty soon. We're going to get to that very soon. So that's why they're going to lament, because she's the only one capable of buying their merchandise. Remember, Mammon is also a god that these people will worship, and this whore will supply their financial needs, feeding them through the lust of the eyes to this god called Mammon. Mammon is wealth. So they too will supply her needs to be in total control of them through pagan worship. So let's look at Luke chapter 12, verse 4. I say unto you, my friends, be not afraid of them that kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do. But I will forewarn you whom you shall fear. Fear him who after he has killed has power to cast into hell. Yeah, I say unto you, fear him. So Hamashiach is warning us that we need to fear Alahayam, and not just reverential fear. We got to have fear of him. You got to be afraid of him. Why? Because he is terrible. Not terrible in a bad way, but he's powerful. But you really, his people, we don't need to have that kind of fright about him, but we need to reverence him. And when we reverence him, then we naturally will respect him and obey him and walk in reverential awe. Because we will know that he is all powerful. He will start to reveal himself to us. And when he starts to reveal himself to us, that will add fuel to the awe that we have towards him. But the problem is, people are provoked to the other kind of fear, which is fright. And that fright or terror cancels out faith. When we have reverential awe, which is a type of fear towards Alahayam, it builds our faith in him. And the one thing that cancels faith is terror, fear, the other fear. But Alahayam, Hamashaya, Yahawasha'o, wants us to understand that he has, Alahayam, Yahweh, has the power to not just kill the body, but he can also kill your spirit. And how does he do that? Cast you into the lake of fire. That's the second death. You have to fear him because he has the ability to kill you twice. People today will threaten you because of your faith, because of who you believe in, but they can only kill the body. And that's why the apostles of Alahayam, Hamashaya, Yahawasha'o, they walked in boldness proclaiming the good news, even though they were beaten and killed. They were not afraid to die because they were walking in faith. And where there's faith, there's no fear of death. You now have power over death. You have power over the enemy because of this faith. Allow me to say this. This is the season, and this is why he tarries. This is the season where Alahayam, Yahweh, is building our faith in him. That's why Hamashiach said, don't give any thought about what you shall eat, what you shall drink, what you shall wear, because all these things Yahweh knows that you have need of. But he said, instead, seek you the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of Alahayam, and all his righteousness. And all these things will be added unto you. He says, seek the kingdom of heaven first. Seek the kingdom of Alahayam, one and the same, first. And then all these things will be added unto you. But the problem is with our people, they want to put the things first and him last. And that's why our people are suffering today. They have no fear of him. They have no fear of what he can do, meaning they have no terror, no fright of what he can do to them at the end of the day. And they definitely have no reverential awe of him because they don't walk in faith. So it is because of fear why people react the way they do to provocation and threats. And this is what this empire and this whore does or will do. Just like what we experienced 3 years ago. Oh, if you don't wear a mask, this and this is going to happen. You can't do this. You can't go there. You can't go on public transit. Actually, less than 3 years ago. And then about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, oh, you can't work in this occupation unless you have the toxin, the serpent juice. All these threats, and our people crumble like a bad cookie. All right? They crumbled and they ran for it and lined up all day to get this toxin. And you know what some people tell me? Oh, God will understand. And I just laugh at them. First of all, who's God? Who is God? Yeah, your God will understand. You're doing just fine by Him. You're doing exactly what He wants you to do. Go take His poison. So people react to provocation and threats. Once you threaten their livelihoods, once you threaten their lives, they become fearful and they succumb and surrender to the threats and the provocation because they have no faith. But Yashraal is warned never to be afraid of what they will say to us or do to us, for if we worship Alahayam, it is inevitable that we will be persecuted for his name's sake. It's inevitable. The Satans hate the name of Alahayam. Therefore, anyone that calls on his name, we are a target. But Alahayam himself will protect us from the devils. That's why we need to pray. And we need to pray all the time. Don't stop praying. However, we are storing up for ourselves our wealth in heaven where dust and rust cannot corrupt. But many people want to store their wealth here on the earth and will go at great lengths to get it and to keep it. Again, that's the problem with our people. You're hearing this talk about reparations and see how our people are jumping in line to get this reparation. I bet you it's going to come with the tax on. I bet you. And many of our people are so foolish, right? They will actually go and take it just to get that money. I'm telling you, when you have mammon sitting on the throne of your heart, when you have the worship of wealth sitting on the throne of your heart, you are lost, completely lost. And even if you decide, okay, well, no, I'm not going after reparations or whatever it is that they want to give to us, but I have my wealth in the bank. And the only way I can get to it, because everything is becoming digital, even people have to become digital. In order to get access to what is mine in the bank, I got to go and take this thing. And you know what some people are going to do? Well, they're going to say, I work hard for this money. So I'm going to go and do what I have to do because I have to provide for my family. And they're going to do it. Provocation and threats. And they'll do what they have to do to keep it. This is the same for these merchants who are pagan worshippers. They will wail at the loss of their mammon. But these ones are already lost souls, whose destiny will be eternal, the eternal damnation, whose destiny will be eternal damnation in the lake of fire. Why? Because they worship the whore. They worship the beast as well. Remember, she's sitting on the beast. So when you worship in her pagan religion, you're also partaking of the beast and worshiping the beast. And that's why they're going to eternal damnation in the lake of fire. They're lost souls. They will not relent or repent of their ways, for these are the ones that destroy the souls of men, making them slaves and sacrifices for their own greed. Let them howl. Let them howl. Wicked people. All right, verse 11 to 13 in Revelation chapter 14, revised. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buys their merchandise anymore. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet. And I have those two colors on the line because the whore wears those colors. And all thyine wood, and all manner vessels of ivory, and all manner vessels of most precious wood, and of brass, and iron, and marble, and cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beast, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and slaves, and souls of men. Now, do you think that these merchants are harvesting wheat and olives and pressing olives and and milling flour, wheat into flour. Do you think they're raising the beasts and the sheep and the horses and the chariot? No, 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 no. These are going to be the modern day pirates that will go into villages and cities and steal all these items from the inhabitants on the earth. That's what they're going to do. And that goes hand in hand with the whore, because the whore, when she was the Roman Catholic Church, that's what her people used to do. You ever heard of the Knights Templar? They're all part of that same system. They used to go and pillage the villages, kill and destroy to get wealth from the villages, steal their silver, steal their gold, steal their resources. So this is what these people are going to do, these merchants, and that's why they're going to wail. Because the whore loved their merchandise because it had a lot of blood on it. A lot of blood came along with their merchandise. And now no one's going to buy from them because it's all stolen stuff. So if they can't sell it, they're stuck with their cargo and they can't go stealing anymore. So it's a good ending to their trade. Now, if you notice that the merchandise that the whore bought included horses, chariots, base items like wood, brass, iron, etc., is showing us that due to the great earthquake in seal number 6, there will be no more technology. Therefore, no more use for electrical items and gasoline items. Everything has been reverted back to burning wood as fuel, oil for lamps to get light, and the base metals will be used also for making items like the lamps, household items like pots and pans, etc. Ships will be made of wood, like before, as the distance to travel will be shortened due to the earth having one landmass once again. Therefore, the ships will merely skirt around the coastline to their destinations. All right, so whether they're going to a village to steal and then they take what they've stolen to the port where the whore is, and I'll get to that in a minute, it's all going to be one direction because they don't have to go through islands or continents or anything. It's one landmass. So it's going to be easier to travel to the seaport of the whore. Now, to have a metal ship would be too costly to build and to move on water. Plus the fact that they will not have the equipment necessary to weld huge items like these cargo ships. So they're going to be wooden ships like they were in the old days. Then you have to consider that its weight on the water will call for power beyond sails or even oars to move it along the water. Wooden ships will be used instead, as they will use oars and sails like the olden times. And when I said oars, I'm not talking about 2 oars. I'm talking about a whole line of oars on one side of the ship and another line of oars on the other side of the ship. And that's why they need slaves. All right? They need slaves in the galley to propel the ship along the water. They are easier to build and conduct along in the water. Now, these merchants will return to pillaging to get their hands on these items like pirates. In fact, they are pirates. How else would they acquire such things except to enter into a country that may have these resources and steal them? This has always been the way of the whore. Now she has these merchants picking up from where she left off, entering into villages and towns to steal what precious items they can acquire, which will also include the slaves that they will need to oar the ships and slaves to sell. The phrase souls of men also tells us that the whore also bought people for human sacrifices. That's why it's called souls of men. When you said men, we're not just talking about males, we're talking males and females. And children as well, not just adults. And they're doing that right now. They never stop sacrificing humans. All right. Amongst other things they will do with these people. This practice is currently going on, and it will become the norm for those on the earth in these coming very wicked days. So let's move on to verses 14 to 16 of Revelation chapter 14, revised. And the fruits that your soul lusted after are departed from you, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from you, and you shall find them no more at all. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city, that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold, and precious stones and pearls. They're crying out. And look at the colors she's dressed in, purple and scarlet, and decked with gold. All the things that the whore relished from the merchants who sold them to her will no longer be available to her. Why? Because she will no longer be in existence to enjoy those things anymore. She's cut off, and they too are cut off. Her destruction that will come quickly will mean a tremendous change on the earth, as trade and commerce will also cease to exist. It will be the merchants that will be greatly affected, as this was their main and only stream of income. Remember, they lived deliciously off her. However, those still surviving on the earth will continue to survive. They were poor to begin with, and they will not be affected by the destruction of the whore, except their resources will remain theirs, as well as the people that were stolen as slaves and sacrifices. The beasts on the earth are being taken down systematically, and all that is left is for the Gentiles now to choose who they will serve. So the first beast to be taken down will be this whore. When Hamashiach comes, he will take down 3 of the other beasts, and then the final beast will be taken down by Alahayam himself after the 1,000 years are up. I covered all of that in the beast of the book of Revelation. And so all these things that are happening on the earth, there is given the Gentiles an opportunity to choose Alahayam or not. If you don't choose him, you'll be destroyed with the whore. You'll be destroyed and end up in the lake of fire. If you do worship him, then you have a chance to make it into his kingdom as well. At this point of time, the vials have not yet been opened, but they have been through great tribulation, talking about the Gentiles on the earth. Yet despite what they've been through, many will still turn away from Alahayam. Verse 17 to 19 of the book of Revelation chapter 14 revised. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads, and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Now again, we see that ships will become the main mode of transportation to move items from one part of the earth to this city. This city will include a seaport where it will be able to receive its items. Now, in saying this, the Vatican City, and we know that the Vatican City is what we want to refer to as the whore of Babylon, but she's going to evolve. She's going to be evolved, not past tense, evolve into the whore of Babylon. So we know the Vatican City at the moment is nowhere near the sea, neither is Rome, because the Vatican City is in Rome, and Rome is in Italy. However, because of destructive earthquakes, The earth will become one landmass, one continent. Also, there will be great destruction of cities and their infrastructures. There will be great destruction of technology, no electricity, and no availability of gasoline. Therefore, there will be great changes to cities which will need rebuilding but on a simpler scale. No high rises, apartment buildings, corporate buildings, municipal buildings, and such. Everything is going to come down low, down to the ground. And this is what's going to happen to this whore. Because a lot of these structures on the earth will be leveled. So this will be her opportunity to choose the most ideal spot close to the coastline, close to the sea, and rebuild her empire. And it will involve a seaport where she can receive her goods from the merchants. And there in that city, close to the seaport, close to the coastline, will also be the center for worship, pagan worship. And at the same time, it will be the center for the trade and commerce. She's going to have her mills there. She's going to have her workers there, all manner of workers. She's going to have her mills there. All kinds of things will be there because she's not only going to receive the goods, but she also has to be able to distribute to those who will come and buy from her. All right. So all will return to a much simpler lifestyle, and so this city will rise from this devastation at this time to be the great whore of Babylon, the city, the center for pagan worship and trade and commerce. Now, after the sixth seal, that's halfway through the last 7 years, when things are destroyed, no more technology, it will give this whore the opportunity to rebuild her city. All right? And she will not rise up and proclaim herself until the northern kingdom makes it into their land, into our land. Then she will come to the forefront. And the Most High would allow her to come to the forefront. Because now she's in the company of the Beast Empire, the NWO 8th Empire, along with the false prophet. All of them are going to be working from this city. This is where they're going to be stationed. Now this will be where the beast, the false prophet, and the NWO reform number 8, Beast Empire, will establish themselves as the whore will have her businesses humming with great success and even greater wealth. It will be at this point of time that there will be a collaboration between the whore and the NWO reform to keep the inhabitants of the earth subjected to them and under their control. Because she controls the resources, she will control the people. And that is beneficial to the Beast Empire because he has no power anymore. His crowns were taken away. Yeah, he doesn't have technology. So now he's dependent on the whore to control the inhabitants on the earth. Now, this new city of sorts will be where merchants will sell their items, and she in turn will distribute and sell them for a great profit. That's why she's going to be so rich. This whore will have means to be able to sell her items, and one of her ways of adding to her great wealth. Yet at the end of it all, she will lose it all. It will all go up in the fire to be destroyed forever. She's going to be destroyed by fire. Are we talking about physical fire? Are we also talking about being cast into the lake of fire? Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 29, and the land shall tremble and sorrow, For every purpose of Yahweh shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant. The mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. They have remained in their holds. Their might have failed. They became as women. They have burned her dwelling places. Her bars are broken. So the same destruction that came to Babylon Empire, the Babylonian Empire back in those days when Jeremiah prophesied against it, so will it be again for the last time, and it will go down forever. Now let's look at verse 20 and 21 of Revelation chapter 14 revised. Rejoice over her, you heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for Alahayam have avenged you on her. So we see even from this statement here from the prophet, from Yawachanan, the reason why Alahayam is taking avenge on her is what she has done to the apostles and to his prophets, as well as his people throughout the ages. So this whore of Babylon cannot be a country. It is a system run by a Satan. It's a religious pagan system that's been around for a very, very long time. That's why Alahayam himself is going to take her down. Verse 21, and a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. So a millstone is used to grind wheat or olives, to get olive oil, and is heavy. It is a very heavy stone. So he is showing us the violence that will come against Babylon, the city. It's going to be great. It's not going to be a little burning here and a little burning there. We're talking about mass destruction. And not just of the items in the city, but the people. And the leaders and the ones that ran it. The destruction of the whore will be great and even explosive because of all the wickedness that she has done throughout the ages and against Yashraal, the chosen people of Yahweh. It will be for this reason why he will properly judge and condemn her with all the cruelty that she herself have shown in her destruction of his people. Remember, he said he's going to fill her cup double for what she's done. That's severe torment. Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 1. The word that Yahweh spoke against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans. And Chaldeans here means clod breakers, and clod is earth. Yet prophetically is speaking of them as breaking people, destroyers of people. That's what the Chaldeans were. So let's read that again. The word that Yahweh spoke against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. Declare you among the nations and publish and set up a standard. Publish and conceal not. Say, Babylon is taken. Baal is confounded. Who is Baal? Baal. The Lord that people call on and say it is their Messiah or their creator. This is Baal or Baal. And then we have another one, Merodach. Merodach is a Babylonian chief god whose name means your rebellion. So you have Lord on one hand and rebellion on the other. And these are two spirits working together with Babylon back in those days, but they're still working together in this day, in the future coming Babylonian city. Baal is the Satan. All right. And Merodach would be a lesser fallen angel working hand in hand because that's what they do to bring about their agenda. Just like there's another Satan in the beast empire, number 8. They all work hand in hand, just like the false prophet. There's a Satan in that one as well. But Merodach is not a Satan. Merodach is a fallen angel. He has a high ranking, but he's like a general, but he is not one of the Satans. But he's rebellion. And he says here that they're broken in pieces. Her idols are confounded. Her images are broken in pieces. All her idolatrous images. Baal, the what's that one called? The Baphomet. They're all broken in pieces. All the images that they put up in the city, broken in pieces. Let's move down to verse 17. Yashraal is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First, the king of Assyria have devoured him, and last, this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, have broken his bones. Therefore said Yahweh, Ol Sabaoth, Alahayam, Ol Yashraal, behold, I will punish the king of Babylon and his land as I have punished the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria took the northern kingdom away as captives, and then later on, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took the southern kingdom. And because they took our people, our forefathers, away in slavery, Alahayam is going to exact his revenge on them. He did it back in those days. He's going to do it again. He's going to do it again. Verse 33, we go down to verse 33. Thus saith Yahweh, Ol Sabaoth, Habanai Ol Yashraal, and Habanai Ol Yahweh were oppressed together. So Habanai Ol Yashraal, the children of Yashraal, and the children of Yahweh, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, were oppressed together. And all that took them captives held them fast. Speaking of the Assyrians and the Babylonians, they refused to let them go. Their Redeemer is strong. Yahweh Ol Sabaoth is his name, Yahweh of hosts. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. He's coming back for them. He already dealt with the Assyrians, but Babylon came back. It's still here. It's a system that we're living under, and it will rise up to be the whore in the future. Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 48. Then the heaven and the earth and all that is therein shall sing for Babylon, for the spoilers shall come unto her from the north, said Yahweh. As Babylon have caused the slain of Yashraal to fall, so at Babylon shall fall the slain of the earth. You have escaped the sword, that means war. Go away, stand not still. Remember Yahweh afar off, and let Yahuwah come into your mind, because it was Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, that went in and tore down the temple. He stole the gold out of the temple. Alahayam himself hid his articles, and he brought down his walls, and then he allowed Nebuchadnezzar and his armies to go in and do the rest. And he is saying here that he is going to remember them for all these things that they have done, not only to his people, but to his temple. He's not going to forget. And why we're going through these verses is to show you why Alahayam is going to take revenge on these entities. He's taking revenge because of what they have done to his people. Verse 52. Therefore, behold, the days come, said Yahweh, that I will do judgment upon her graven images, and through all her land the wounded shall groan. Though Babylon should mount up to the heaven, And though she should fortify the height of her strength, yet from me shall spoilers, meaning those to devastate, come to her, said Yahweh, a sound of a cry from Babylon and great destruction from the land of the Chaldeans. Because Yahweh have spoiled Babylon and destroyed, perished out of her the great voice. She has no voice anymore. She can't speak anymore. When her waves do roar, meaning there's a tumult, mourning, like great waters, a noise of her voice is uttered, because the spoiler is come upon her, even upon Babylon, and her mighty men are taken. Every one of their bows is broken. For Yahweh Alahayam of recompense shall surely requite. He is doing the destruction. And when I say he is doing it, he's going to cause the beast that she rides upon to destroy her. He's going to put it in their heart to destroy her, to hate her, to destroy her. And they're going to strip her of everything and then burn her with fire. Verse 57, and I will make drunk her princes and her wise men, her captains and her rulers and her mighty men, and they shall sleep a perpetual sleep and not awake, said Hamalak the king, whose name is Yahweh ol Sabaoth. Thus saith Yahweh ol Sabaoth, the broad walls of Babylon shall be utterly broken, and her high gates shall be burned with fire. And the people shall labor in vain, and the folk in the fire, and they shall be weary. So he's destroying everything with fire. And this is not just the physical fire, but he's casting her Satan, into the lake of fire. And this system will never rise up again after this. Let's look at the last verse 22 of Revelation chapter 14, revised. And the voice of the harpers and musicians and of the pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in you, and no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in you, and the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in you. Actually, this is not the last verse. We have about 2 more verses left. So the city, the whore of Babylon, the center for worship and commerce, will be eternally silenced. So there's a lot going on in this city. A lot of whoredom going on in this city. That's why they're going to have lots of music and stuff going on. Right? It's going to be like the place to be. All right? Her musicians, craftsmen, and tradesmen will all be destroyed, because it's not just pagan worship, but it's trade and commerce. So she's going to have her businesses there. All right? And people are what make up the business. Right? They're trading to the outsiders, the inhabitants of the earth. They all come to get their goods from this whore. So she's going to have her shops and her stores and whatnot. Not stores like we know of today, but she's going to have her little shops and stuff set up, her mills and whatnots. Because she's going to be selling cattle. She's going to be selling donkeys. She's going to be selling herds and whatnot. So this is going to be a massive operation, a massive enterprise. And that's why she's going to be so rich. All right? And not only the commerce side and the pagan side, but there's also going to be entertainment of sorts. Because people are coming to stay. They're going to come to stay so that they can do their shopping to take it back home. So they're not just coming to spend an hour or a short period of time to grab their goods and go. They're coming to have a good time as well. Remember, she's a whore. So she's going to have all manner of entertainment there for the people. And that's why she's going to have music. And we know who loves music. Gadriel. He was the anointed cherub that sang and played a musical instrument. So people are going to be drawn to this city because it's going to be like Las Vegas, except no lights, just candles. There's no electricity, but it's going to be a humming place. All right. Now notice here again, the millstone will even be silenced. Okay, let me just back up here. I'll read again. Her musicians, craftsmen, and tradesmen will all be destroyed. Notice here again, the millstone will even be silenced, showing us once again that life will return to the old days where wheat and other grains will be ground with a millstone. This means that there will be mills even amongst all the other enterprises that will be found in this city. She'll be receiving wheat as part of the merchandise from the merchants. So, yes, she'll be grinding this wheat to make flour for her customers. So, it's going to be one massive place with lots of things going on. So, let's look at the last two verses, verse 23 and 24 of Revelation chapter 14 revised. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in you, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in you. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, for by your sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of the saints and of all who were slain upon the earth. So even the light of the candle will be put out eternally. The voice of the bridegroom and of the bride are those who were married to her, whether men who are the bridegrooms or women who are brides, selling their merchandise in her city and also worshiping her, worshiping according to her ways. So people that worship her and worship her idols and worship her in her ways are considered married to her. That's why she's called the great harlot, because she has stolen away the worship of Alahayam from by allowing these people, by provoking these people to worship her. When we worship Alahayam, he is to us like a husband. He said that in his word. That's why he talks about divorcing his people when they act like harlots, when they worship other gods. So these brides and bridegrooms, or bridegrooms and brides, are the people, male and female, that worship the whore. And their voices are the ones that are heard in her city as they are worshiping her and doing all the things that she tells them to do. So their voices are not going to be heard anymore at all. Their voices are the great men of the earth, and even those speaking of men, it also refers to women. So people that worship her and trade with her and sell their merchandise and all that stuff in her become great, become powerful, become rich. Because that's in exchange for their loyalty. Because in order to trade with her, to do anything with this whore, you have to submit yourself by worshiping her, worshiping the beast. All of that is part of it. Now, sorceries is pharmakia, and this is where we get the word pharmacy from. In Greek, it means the administering of drugs, poisoning, magic arts, witchcraft, idolatry, and deception. And for the whore, it is all of this. All of this is the whore. Now you can see that this whore will be comprised of not just one layer of evil, but multi-layers of evil to draw the nations into her web of deceit and also to keep them there. Remember what they told us 2 years ago? If you take the thoughts on, life will go back to normal. But that was a lie from the pit of hell. If you take the devil juice, life will go back to normal. But they are of the father, the devil, who is a liar from the very beginning. All they wanted you to do is to take their pharmakia, which is sorcery. And anyone that tells you it's a precursor to the mark of the beast is a lie from the pit of hell. There's no such thing as a precursor in the word of Alahayam, so there's no such thing. You take it, you're doomed for all destruction. He's not even giving you his cup of wrath with a mixture in it. There's no judgment for you. You're just condemned. That's it. He said that in his word. These are not my words. These are his words. So those who are found in a city will also be destroyed right along with her. And those who are affiliated with her will get their comeuppance as well. So not everyone is going to be dwelling in her city. They're going to have their own cities. They come to her, get their stuff, go back to their cities, and they sell there. So even that's why he said, all those, the ones that are full of pride and so on and so forth, they're going to be destroyed in their cities too. Anyone that is affiliated with this whore is going to be destroyed. So they will get their comeuppance, and those who are affiliated with her will get their comeuppance as well. No one will escape the wrath of Alahayam when he pours it out on this whore. The last verse gives us a clear reason why her destruction will be so great, because of the destruction that she had caused amongst our people and even of the Gentiles, who wanted nothing to do with her, but were slain. It is for this reason why Alahayam is warning our people to get out from amongst her now. Later is too late. Get out of her clutches, for she has many different ways in which to capture you. Many different ways to keep you entertained by her false doctrines and captivated by her lure of great wealth, position, and power. That's what I'm saying. Don't love substance. The things that you have, be grateful for them. But if you have to get rid of them so that you can live in holiness and righteousness, do it. And don't worry about tomorrow. You worry about today. The only thing you need to be concerned about is where you're going to spend eternity. That's the only future that you need to worry about. But as it comes for about today, whatever, if you're worried about what you're going to eat, what you're going to drink, where you're going to live, those things, as long as you worship Alahayam, he will take care of those things. I'm telling you with 100% assurance that he will take care of these things for you. If you're sincere of heart, he will do what he needs to do to keep you safe and fed. But if you're doing it just so you can get some place to live and you're all lip service and you just want to make sure you get food and maybe some protection, he knows what's already in your heart. He knows that you just want to take advantage of him, and so he will not even deal with you. He knows who belongs to him and who's sincere in their hearts. There are a lot of people that are going along to get along, going along to get what they want, and they praise him with their lips, but their hearts are far away from him. He knows who's who. He sees us on the inward parts, and he sees and hears us even before we speak or do. So nothing takes him by surprise. He already knows tomorrow. He already knows who's going to make it to the end. So there's no surprise if you turn the other way. He already knows that you never belonged to him in the first place. And that's why we're not supposed to worry about wealth, because this whore deals with wealth. Mammon is a god. She can also capture you by her pharmakia, her drugs, her poisons, that when administered will certainly kill you or incapacitate you, causing you to be dependent on her pharmakia to make it through a day. There's so many of our people that run to the doctor, and the first thing the doctor do is give you a prescription, tell you, okay, take this. And then next time you go back to him, you got to take something more. You got to take something more. So you got 10 types of prescriptions that you have to take every day to survive. And the longer you take it, the more dependent you are on it. You can't even come off at this point of time. And pharmakia is a spirit. And this is how Satan comes in. This is one of the avenues that he comes in to bring torment into our lives through sicknesses and diseases. This way, because when you take something that is not natural, what do you think is happening to your natural body? It's causing it to break down. And when your body starts to break down and you go and you take more stuff, what do you think is happening? You're creating bigger problems for yourself. You know, I know this woman, she used to pray over her medications before she took it. Crazy. You need to pray to come off that medication. You need to pray to come off pharmakia. It's not intended for us to take unnatural stuff to heal our bodies. Our bodies were created to heal naturally. But you got to feed it. Starve whatever it is that is in your system. First of all, you got to repent. Secondly, you need to eat clean. Third, you need to obey the commandments of Alahayam and walk in holiness and righteousness. And then he's going to direct your path to having a healthy body. A healthy body means you're going to have a healthy mind and a healthy spirit. And that's why pharmakia destroys all of that. Okay. Or she will use her trap of indoctrination into pagan religions. And that's exactly where a lot of our people are. Pagan religions. Lots of indoctrination. This whore has many different ways that she can cause anyone to come under her spell. Yes, she has witchcraft under her tentacle as well. Our only hope is to call on Ruach HaKadosh to help us to discern when her evil is coming our way and show us how to resist it. That's why we have to keep praying. We have to spend time fasting and praying, studying the word, getting into the word, walking in obedience. Don't worry about these yahoos out there telling you don't need to celebrate Shabbat. Celebrate Shabbat. All right? And you also need to you need to worship Alahayam. Start calling on the names of pagan gods. If you are not sure, call him Abba. Call the son Hamashiach. Those are safe titles. And pray and ask him to let you know his name. You have to know the language in order to know his name. You can't claim that you're awakened and you're walking in righteousness and holiness and you're calling on pagan gods. That doesn't make any sense. You think he's going to hear you? She's not called a whore for nothing. She's a temptress, capable of persuading most anyone with her wiles. But armed with wisdom, knowledge, understanding, discernment, and the word of Alahayam, she will not be difficult to spot and resist. Thankfully, this whore, although we are living under her currently, but not as the whore yet, we still need all these wonderful qualities of Alahayam, which is wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and discernment. And his word, of course, the truth. That's how we're going to be able to spot her and resist her. Because if it was that easy, then we wouldn't need Ruach HaKadosh to help us. But we're living in some very trying times where up is down and down is up. He has inverted everything. And he has added layers to everything. So when you think you have stripped off all the evil and you're left with the truth, you got another layer of evil there waiting for you. That's why we need Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of truth, to show us what to absorb, what to believe, and how to understand it. Can't do it any other way. You cannot survive, especially in these days. Can't survive. So let's look at the last verse, last scripture. James chapter 4, verse 7. Submit yourselves therefore to Alahayam. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. And if it was easy to just resist him so that he can flee, then everyone will be able to do it. But Satan is a temptress. He knows where our weak areas are because he's been sending out his fiery darts to see where they land, if they land. And then he works it until he gets an opening to come in to disrupt our lives. We, in order to resist the devil, we have to follow Hamashiach's example, the word. He used the word, his word, against the devil. 3 times the devil came to tempt him, and 3 times he resisted him with the word. The word became his shield and his buckler. So that when Satan sent his fiery dart, he was able to quench it with his word. His word is also like water. When we don't know the word, when we don't know the truth, it's one thing to be able to recite the word, but when we recite it in ignorance, when we recite it out of context, then he is happy because it has no power and it doesn't function. But when we absorb the truth of the word of Alahayam, then the Ruach HaKodesh can come with his power and do the rest. Ruach HaKodesh is the one who empowers the word when it is spoken in truth. He's the one who gives all words power when we speak it in truth, when we speak it with understanding, when we speak it in wisdom. He comes in then and he does his part. We've done our part. No, he does his part. Let me tell you. One of the serious devils that we have to deal with is called fear. I don't know if any of you have experienced this. But sometimes, and it happens generally at night, I've heard this from other people, not just myself. And something happens. Either it's a bad dream or what. But you have an experience and fear. And it usually happens when you're asleep. Because the enemy thinks when you're sleeping that your resistance is lowered. That's why you need to pray every night before you go to sleep. Pray for covering. Many people go to bed, oh, I'm so tired, and they're snoring away. You have no protection. You have no covering. If that's all you do every night. You need to spend time in the Word before you go to bed. Let it be the last thing you do, is to read a few chapters in the Bible and to pray. Pray a covering over yourself and over your family, over your house. But every now and then, the Father allows the enemy to come in because he's training us in faith. I know this. And so you wake up and there's a fear. You sense fear in the room. And the Father will say, okay, so what are you going to do now? You know what you're supposed to do? Rebuke it. Roll over and go back to sleep. You rebuke it, you roll over and go back to sleep. Because when you rebuke it and you trust him by rolling over and going back to sleep, then he takes care of the rest. Happens every time. If you sit there and you turn on the lights and you start quivering, he's going to stay. And not only is he going to stay, but he's going to come back the next night and he's going to bring friends with him too. This is how these demons work. And again, allow me to say this. I know this is kind of off topic. It is what you watch and what you listen to that invites these devils in your space, in your dimension in the first place. And I want to leave it at that. But you need to resist the devil. And you resist him with what? The word. And living in righteousness and in holiness. Because if you live any other way, Alahayam can't even protect you. You've bound his hands because of your wicked deeds. All right. So with that, that's the ending of part 2. So let's end with the blessing for Yashwa'al. The Barayam, chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. That's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. Yabarakak Yahweh, Waya Shamarak, may Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahweh Panayo Alayak Wayahanak, may Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and have favor on you. Yasha'a Yahweh Panayo Alayak Wayashamlak Shalom, may Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And I say, Shalom, Shalom, all praises to the Most High, Abba Yah.